get that one for you as well.
Okay, so let's take your shoulders through that way.
Hi everybody and welcome to Client Chat, where we talk about marketing, brand, and helping people show up with confidence. Today I'm talking with one of my great clients, Ray Donnelly of Umbrella IT Solutions, and we recently teamed up and got headshots for his remote team, which on the outset you might think that, well, that's a challenge because they're all out in the field, Ray's at his office, and your studio's over there. But we, by implementing a few strategies and really collaborating together very closely, we were able to pull off the photo day or the photo session for the day seamlessly. So with that, I'm going to introduce Ray.
Hey everybody, my name's Ray Donnelly. I own a managed IT services firm here in North Florida. That basically means we provide IT services to small and medium-sized businesses. We specialize in the healthcare space and government contracting spaces for companies that need assistance not only with IT services, but also with attaining compliance in different frameworks that they have to work under based on their industries. We've been in business for about 11 years. We have a small team. We staff usually around 10 people, and we work with companies that are typically in the 50 to 150 employee size space. So other than that, it's been a long journey this last 10 years, just kind of building a company, existing in a very competitive IT space like the one that we exist in. And one of the things that's really of late been a challenge for us is expanding our marketing programs. And part of that was getting a photographer, getting a new brand identity, a new, brand marks and logos and everything set up for the company, and kind of as part of that process, finding a firm that can be a long-term photography partner so that we can keep that business next door personal feel, and we're not just this IT provider in the cloud like a lot of our competitors are. And so that's really been an amazing part with working with Chris, is he's super personable and he's just easy. If I need photography, or even during our initial session, he made it so much less awkward for my IT guys who can be nerdy, and a little bit different from your typical marketing people. But that's a little bit about us. But it's been an absolute pleasure working with Chris on this.
Okay, so Ray, tell us a little bit about the team and what you've done to build the team that that works well and something that really your clients really appreciate.
The biggest challenge we have with clients on a regular basis is we have to translate what is very technical language to a way that they can understand it. And, we might have somebody who's a health center administrator or a hospital administrator or a business owner who's working in an engineering firm, and they might need a very large IT project, and the line items on that project are complex in nature. They don't understand everything about the technical details of the computers and the servers and everything that we roll out, or moving them to the cloud. There's so many buzzwords in IT that it's impossible even for us to keep up with all of them. So one of the things I think that our clients have really appreciated over the years, and a bit of feedback that we've almost universally gotten, is that we help make complex topics that they don't understand understandable to them. We can simplify things in a way that most clients can understand from a project management standpoint, and from an end result, this is why you should go this path versus the other. And we kind of bring all these complex topics into layman terms. And I think that's just the experience of the team over the many years that we've been doing these projects. Between our team, we have over 50 years of combined experience, and we've just learned that you can sit and give a 1-hour lecture to somebody about something they don't understand, and all it does is works against you. Or you can come up with some colorful examples and just get to the point. So one thing that we've, when we reach out for testimonials, that's almost a universal thing that we hear, is that you guys make this so much more simple to understand. And people are mindful of their time, and they just appreciate us cutting to the chase on that.
Yeah, and when we talk about IT, computers, servers, and things like that, it's a really complex business. Even on our end in photography, where we're using a complex machinery, from the cameras to the lenses to the computers and software we use. And I would agree with you that I think that a lot of times we buy things and we have no idea, what we're buying, but it just sounds like we should have it. So to have somebody to come in and really simplify things, say, well, this means this. And let me give you an example. That's got to be a huge bonus to the client.
Yeah, well, and and to your point, sometimes somebody, it's, hey, what's this $30,000 piece of hardware, or this $30,000 compliance program? Why do I need this? And it can be an uphill battle, right? Because this might be something that somebody with their prior provider, or maybe they've never had an IT provider before and they've just kind of managed it internally. And now all of a sudden the scope has gotten out of their control and they come to us and we say, well, look, it's not just the hardware you need, but you're in a compliance market and you have cyber insurance and you're not meeting the minimums on your cyber insurance. And that's going to require a whole separate program. So we start a very low level educational funnel for them to start understanding where we don't want to make anybody feel like they're stupid or like they've been missing out on something and they're in trouble, right? We just want to let people understand that this is where you are and this is kind of where you need to be at the industry standard or to be in compliance, maybe even with regulations that you have to follow legally. And so we just start a very low level a program of education, of advising, and we just kind of get people to understand over time what these objectives mean, and we create small wins for them.
Yeah, I mean, talking on the tech side of things, which is not really on my creative brain, and the tech don't really go that well together. However, I think the users, like on websites and things, at least for me, when I hit a website and it looks like it's like 10, 12, 15 years ago it was built and it operates that way, it's like the thing that jumps into my head immediately is, man, they must have invested a ton of money back then. So now they're trying to get their,
Yeah,
get
they
a
want
return on
15
that
years out of this
investment.
website. Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of
So,
knowing that it's every 5 years, the
yeah.
whole the
Yeah.
whole web presence changes, right?
Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
so
nowadays, even every year, right? With
yeah.
AI and the rapid evolution of algorithms, you can so quickly end up in a bad spot with your SEO if you're just not staying current.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of the analogy there for me is it's like headshots. We were, chatting earlier about and joking about getting headshots updated, but it's true. That with technology, you have to stay on it and continually update. And it's the same with headshots. Every few years, you really need to get them updated so that you can stay, I think, authentic and relevant. So, Ray, let's just delve into the marketing a little bit. So we talked about your rebrand last year, etc. So have you tried anything new since the last time we chatted in terms of marketing? Any new tools, etc., or new channels? Any of those surprised you? Have they worked out really well?
So we actually haven't, and we've done a lot of demos. We have a new marketing program that we budgeted for this year, and it's going to go live in July. And so part of that was we had a firm that we had engaged as a partnership with who developed our website, and we had started the initial process with them, like a competitor analysis, keywords that on the marketing side of things. What we're kind of targeting first is our SEO and kind of eliminating some of that debt in our SEO to try to really optimize the site. And then we're looking at a targeted marketing campaign for some verticals that we're really specializing in. And so this firm kind of was great on the SEO side, and they weren't as great in helping us identify these target vertical opportunities. And so we kind of made a decision at the beginning of this year, as the budget fully became approved for it, that we really needed to kind of separate these two roles and have, a firm who really specializes in each. And so we went back through the interview process with a few new firms. We locked in kind of a ramp up process with the firm that we ended up going with. And so that's really set to kick off heavily in July. But there's so much back end stuff that goes into that. We have to build the landing pages. So we've
Yeah.
started building the landing pages. Actually, because of market shifts in our industry, especially the last 3 or 4 years in the IT services industry, there have been so many market shifts. We're being treated now more like lawyers are when it comes to compliance than just your outsourced IT department, right? Our insurance has gone way up. Our legal requirements are now kind of sitting on us because people are realizing we have control of all this data. We touch so many clients' data that there needs to be more regulation in our industry, and it's been a good thing, but the evolution has been rapid, and it's really been driven by insurance companies. And because of that, we've in the last 2 or 3 years had to change programs so many times. Our cyber insurance requirements have changed, what they're willing to pay out for. So we have to change our scopes that we can engage with projects because of that. And so we actually had a moment even earlier this year where we had to meet with some consultants, meet with our cyber insurer, our broker, and redo our programs again, even on the site from what we did last year. So we had a couple of curveballs over the last year through this redevelopment of the site, redevelopment of all of our programs, redoing our pricing, our MSA, our terms. Everything has, from the ground up, had to be redone as part of this, this marketing program. And now we're just to the point where we're finally building these landing pages and getting this program going. But I mean, if there's anything I could give as insight from what I've learned is when you're really ready to get a good marketing program going and invest, it is a much bigger beast than just pulling the trigger on something. If you're going to do it properly, it takes research, it takes the prep work, and you've got to have the staffing, you've got to have the people on site who's going to handle the sales, who's going to handle the incoming leads, right? So it's been a long process.
Very nice, thank you. Yeah, we so you as you experienced last year, I had the guys that do my web development and all that stuff. They had implemented a new CRM for us, and within that, we have a tool that allows us to block out a studio day for a client like yourself, and then your employees can then go in and book the time that they want to come in. And then from there, they get a reminder a week before, the day before, and 2 hours before. And we have a number of people coming in at different intervals during the day. It's seamless, so it makes it very easy for companies. I think that a lot of times that when we talk about remote employees, and I've run into this quite a bit over the years, it's like people are saying, "Oh, it's too hard to get all our people together," and I would agree with that. To get everybody together at one go, yeah. So, like we did, working together, approach the problem from a different angle. Okay, well, why don't they just come in singly and book themselves in? Boom, done. And it makes it very, very streamlined for small businesses. So I want to kind of prick your brain a little bit, because there are a ton of small businesses out there that probably think that getting world-class headshots to help them with their marketing and branding, particularly on their website, is kind of the game for the big companies. They have the budget for that. So let's talk a little bit about how affordable getting quality headshots really is.
Yeah. For me, the cost of the headshot is a negligible cost when you compare the cost of the web development, you compare the cost of the branding. I mean, we paid 4 times what we paid for headshots with you guys just for our basic branding, for our logo package. And you look at business identity, I mean, it really depends on your industry. Look, if you're in manufacturing, right, maybe your factory doesn't need headshots of all of the the staff, right, because your brand is your identity. But for us in the service industry, especially, our services are our bread and butter. Yeah, we do a little bit of hardware resale. We do a little bit of, on the software resale side when we're selling specific type of licensing and everything. But most of the stuff we do for our clients are face to face in some way or another. It's on a Teams call. It's we're talking to them, we're picking up a phone, we're emailing them. So they're talking to human beings, and they need to be able to see how that person looks. That's super important, especially when you're in a field like computers where there's this layer of abstraction from the human, right? Where, like I mentioned with the email, right, where it's back and forth. It's a Teams chat. It's an email message going back and forth. So I think when you can make your experience working remotely and working through these computers as personable as possible, you end up in a situation where people remember you and they appreciate you more. And you're not just this person that's telling them they need to do things, or that they call when they have a problem, and you're like a robot in the sky that, jumps on their computer and fixes it. I think the value of that headshot is you create a personal attribute to your brand. And especially in the services industry, that's worth 10 times more than the cost of doing a headshot every few years or every 5 years, or whatever the tolerance is budget wise. I think it's a great investment. I think it really, from a marketing standpoint, it's probably the single most powerful thing when it comes to the aesthetic value of the site that we have on there right now. And we want to do more. We want to do team shots, us having fun, us doing installs, let people see that these IT guys that are in your network closets and in the background helping you configure these things on the cloud are fun, cool people that you'd want to hang out with.
Yeah, it's showing like the human side of it. It reminds me of I had a conversation with a client last year, and they're in the service industry, trade, plumbers. I said, so we got these headshots. So do you think it would be a good idea that when somebody books you, they've got an issue at their house, when they book you, and an email goes out to them and saying that Bob Smith is going to be with you tomorrow at 11. Do you think attaching a picture of Bob Smith would be a good idea? And the lady's like, I never thought of that. I said, well, in our day and age where, we worry about security and this and that, I think it's essential to have like a really crisp photo of the person that's going to be going out to
Yeah.
your clients or your customers
Yeah.
so that they know who it is. I think that reflects back down to, I think, all businesses. And you mentioned manufacturing companies. There are some companies that, I mean, you don't want the shop floor workers on in the pictures. I get that. I think it's important to show the leadership team, much like the legal profession's done that for years. So they show the attorneys and the paralegals, but they're not going to show some of the other people that do research and things like that. But it's important, I think, for people to know who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Especially for a photographer. Can you imagine
Yeah.
my website if there wasn't a picture of me on there?
Yeah.
That would be kind of weird.
Yeah. Yep. It's putting those touch points in as many places as possible. Like the email signature, not something big overblown, but just a picture of a face. You remember who you're talking to very quickly on that signature. Having it on the website in an area, at least in the about us section, that somebody can just go in there and they say, okay, well, these are a cool group of people. They look put together. I think it's a human emotion thing that we can build better attachment when we see who we're talking to, right? And that's super important in marketing, especially in the digital era, right? Where we're not going door to door anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people do that, like go cold calling around office parks and stuff. So,
They should, but
yeah, maybe they should. Yeah. But I mean, it is a different, marketing nowadays is a different arena. But interestingly, we did a client chat the other week with a podcaster, and we were talking about AI headshots, and she said the human mind is trained to look for faces. And she said, and if I see an AI headshot, I miss it. I don't see a person. And that is, I think that's so true that we need to be real. We need to be authentic.
I actually agree with that. And it's not even just the idea of that. I think it's called like the uncanny valley. The idea that we can pick apart something that isn't real because our brains are just so attuned to, something being off about the AI image. I think it's not just that. It's just conceptually for me. If I'm going to pay for a headshot, I want it to be a real headshot. I don't want it to be, and I would, if I found out somebody had done the AI headshot thing, in my mind, it's a corner's cut because you didn't cut on a part of a project that could be value engineered. You cut on the human element. You cut
Yeah.
yourself out of the presentation. To me, that's just, I don't like that. There's something about the idea of that is just off-putting to me. I think when you're doing something like portraying yourself in a brand, that it should absolutely be the real thing. And you know what? Even if you look a little goofy and the AI makes you look in your mind, better or something, people are going to resonate with the real you better than they're going to resonate with that AI image. I just guarantee it.
Yeah, I think your team, I think we really captured their personalities. And the one that really stands out to me was Jerry.
Yeah. He is our standout when it comes to personality. Everybody loves Jerry. There's not a single person in this world that I've ever met that does. He's the quintessential IT guy.
Right.
He's warm. He's larger than life. He's a big guy. He's just got everything about him is the quintessential IT guy, and he's gonna deliver some gadgets to you and some knowledge, and he's the heart and soul of Umbrella. That's for sure.
Yeah, great guy. It's fun photographing everybody, but Jerry certainly was different,
Yeah.
and I love his headshot. And he's got glasses on without glare. He's smiling but not showing his teeth, and he's got his bow tie on. I thought it was a brilliant photo. I loved it.
Yeah, I think we all agreed Jerry looked the best too. We were just like, Jerry just killed it.
Wait, you should have said Angela.
Yeah.
You get into trouble, Ray.
Hopefully she doesn't hear me here.
Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the team is remote, and Jacksonville's huge. We know that. So to get from here to the other side of Jacksonville is at least an hour's drive. If you're with that the remote model that you created, what's worked best for you, or what works well for you in that?
So one of our challenges is what value do we actually get out of having an office? And so we were in a situation pre-COVID where we would have clients come up to our office every once in a while. They'd come drop something off, or maybe for like a quick meeting or something like that. But we really weren't using it other than as a central hub for storing. Maybe we have a client project where we have to replace 20 workstations and we need a place to put those 20 workstations, right? We need a workshop or a work area. And we still have that. We still will need that because you're not going to use your house as that workshop. But only 2 or 3 of our engineers would be doing project work like that at a time. And usually it would only be for like a week that they need that warehouse space, right? So we just ended up saying we really we don't need to use the space we have for meet and greets. We don't need to use the space we have for cubicles and people talking over each other and having to drive 30 minutes every morning to and from work and taking that hour out of everybody's day, right? There wasn't any initial value that we could really determine other than we were spending a lot of time together having fun in between the work, right? We were working hard, but we were also building these long bonds. And so when COVID happened, we said, well, let's see if we can keep the fun going. Let's see if we can keep the collaboration and do this all from home. And nobody knew how it was going to work. And I'm sure it was at every company. We helped a ton of businesses during that time transition to a work from home model. And honestly, COVID was one of our best years in terms of growth. That 2021 or 2020 to 2021, not only because we had existing clients that had a ton of project work reconfiguring their entire environments, but also because we just had so many new people reaching out, needing this, sudden IT service for this help. And through that process, there were definitely some growing pains. There's definitely, going to the remote model, people had to learn how to be motivated at home. They had to learn how to create space in their home environments to carve out for work, right? And that's a very important thing. People think when you work from home, you just, work from the couch here or whatever. And maybe some people can do that. But I think for most people, we need an office. We need a space that we step into while we're working and we step out of that separates us, from the comfort of our normal house and home time. But we found that through the use of things like Teams and all these modern platforms, that as long as we carve out the time to meet every day, as long as we can carve out the time to call each other when we have a dispute or, any kind of friction, these things happen when you have a, tight-knit team working together. You just have to know when to call people because so much can be lost in the text, right? In the back and forth conversations, tone can be lost and you just start feeling even the effort of having to put in the text can be something that can be frustrating. And we just kind of realized that, we work as efficiently, if not more efficiently. We save time working from home. Everybody has the office just how they want it. We don't have the noise of having to work on top of each other. And when we do go and we have to do something like a install where somebody has to go to the office and configure things, they now have more space to spread out and do those things. So there was a lot of wins that came out of it. And I think it's always an evolving thing as well because we're still getting better at doing the remote thing. And this is, 4 years from COVID removed. We're using better meeting tools. We're evolving to these AI-led meeting summaries. And one of the benefits of having so many more meetings, even internally, that are taking place over a digital platform like Teams is now even our internal meetings, we're recording the meeting notes, right? The objectives are being delivered to our to-do lists where these were just conversations in an office and details would fall through the cracks, right? So there's been some efficiency gains for sure when it comes to time, when it comes to recording information, and the comfort of being at your house. It's a wonderful thing. That alone can be stress relieving in many ways.
Yeah, and I would imagine that with the guys sometimes having to leave early in the morning to go to client sites to work on client systems and stuff, it's a lot more convenient for them to leave, from home, have everything they need, leave from home and go, as opposed to, well, I've got to go to the office and get this or that to go there.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, and we have guys spread all over Jax. So now you can choose the closest one rather than everybody's at an office and, it happens to be super far away. And now we've driven to the office just to have to drive all the way back to this other location, right? So, yeah, I think there's been immense benefits just in efficiency across the board. I think the only drawbacks are that human element, and it's been one of our feedback. We have every 2 weeks, we have a process review and feedback meeting for staff. And one of the big things as far as objectives is we need to do more team building things. We need to do more things that, are not even, because we do educational stuff where we take time off to do education together. And that's kind of a team building thing, but really just have fun. Because we used to carve out these little bits of time to have fun in the office, joke with each other or prank with each other. And that's kind of hard to recreate in a remote setting, right? And that's a very human group experience, especially with a lot of guys in the office. It's just something that tends to happen in these sort of environments, and we all miss it. We all completely miss that. And that's our new challenge, is how do we create that extra layer that we had before? And I think it's just we're going to have to meet sometimes when time allows to do that type of stuff still. Maybe do an escape room or something, something that isn't just leadership or
Yeah.
education focused.
Yeah, those like after hours get-togethers, I've done escape room years ago, and that was fun. I go, as you know, I play golf every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll go over Top Golf. So
Yeah.
if we have a visitor, I'll say, hey, come over to Top Golf. We'll go hit some golf balls, and it's amazing the number of corporate people that are there in
Yeah.
the booth and doing these little team building events, and they're like, trying to chalk up scores against each other.
It's
Yeah,
probably what prop Top Golf up. Like that's probably one of their largest revenue items, is just corporate sponsorships.
probably.
Is so many golf players up, high in leadership and, country club people, and they just say, "Oh, well, Top Golf sounds super fun. We don't have to pay, exorbitant membership fees for people to go to a course, and you can sit there and have some drinks." It's an amazing business model. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, moving on. So I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit in the kind of the tricky parts, which is about running or organizing a remote team, and those are that camaraderie and that the team spirit, and I think that it sounds like you guys know and understand that, and at the end of the day, if you know and understand, then it's a relatively easy fix, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, and I think that if you don't address those things or you put the blinders on, then it can turn into issues down the road.
Yeah, we've seen that just with growing pains. The more people you hire, the more division of labor you have, the more is expected of certain people to do certain things. You have project managers now, you have technicians, but being that we're still a relatively small company, right? We still all have to wear many hats. And so
Yeah,
now you have primary responsibilities, but you might be expected, because we have somebody on vacation this week, to be pulled back into something that puts a break on what you normally do, and now that can create some frustration, and all you have is text messages going back and forth with everybody about this change in your life. You might feel some type of way, sitting just at home, because we haven't been able to joke and just have fun like we normally do, which helps alleviate that change. And so we have definitely found over the last few years that there's been more friction points than we had when we were all a unit, when we could talk things out in real time and kind of joke and suffer together, right? Rather than suffering alone. I guess
we're in
that's
the
part of it.
trenches.
Yeah, being in the trenches. And that, I tell people all the time, we have 54 clients here in the First Coast, and we have 54 different environments that are different, with different type of clients with different management styles, and
Yeah,
services companies and manufacturing companies. And so one of our challenges with marketing is we're really starting to focus on verticals that we really excel in. And luckily, most of our clients kind of have been in those verticals. We actually pruned a lot of clients that we just were long term. They were we had been doing work for them, but they had not been very profitable, and they hadn't been great partner relationships. There would just be constant misunderstandings because of different ideas than what we were offering for their IT management. And so we kind of said, well, look, we went through a while when we were growing where we kind of just picked up anybody we could, and try to be the best provider for everybody. And we kind of learned that you really can't ever be the best provider for everybody. You have to really focus in. And it's one thing is the actual market verticals, because different verticals have very specific products and different IT needs, and capacity plans and strategic planning that someone like us has to understand. And you can't do that across, 20, 30 verticals and do it well. And part of that is also you start learning about the management styles of your clients and their risk tolerances and things like that. And these are these kind of intangible variables, and you start having to learn of who's going to be a good fit for you, right? And we kind of market ourselves as a really compliance focused or MSP, compliance focused MSP. And so security is huge for us. Security is first and foremost and paramount. And we've seen what happens when clients aren't willing to invest in security. And so now we have sort of a process where we provide an audit, we provide a qualification for our clients, where we kind of feel them out and we say, hey, we think we're going to be a great partner to you, or we think maybe another MSP might be a better fit. and we're completely open to that idea that there's we believe in our industry, there's an MSP for every business who needs IT support. And we're going to be a great MSP for some and not for everybody. And so part of that has been, just the understanding that you have to be able to say no and maybe lose some clients. And so that's been a big process for us is creating a vertical or a few different verticals that really make the most sense for us as a company.
I think I think it's a good business lesson, though, for a lot of businesses, and certainly I'm a great example of that because and I've always done headshots, but up until COVID, if somebody said we have a wedding, I'll shoot it. We have this, a dog, another. But it was when COVID came around, it really gave me time to sit down and think about what do I want to do?
Yeah.
What's most lucrative, what's most fun for me. And it really came down to making people look confident in their headshots. And that's really driven me. So once I started to strip away the things that really weren't that lucrative, or they weren't really in my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
it's not my expertise, and really focus on the headshots, then my business really changed a lot. And much like yourself, transitioning out of 2020 into 21 was a huge increase in business. I think it's because I decided to focus and kind of niche down on what I was doing.
Yeah. I think, to your point, do only what you do really well. And usually what you do really well is what you really enjoy doing, right?
Yeah.
Those are two things that just happen to be always hand in hand.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something earlier about, IT support groups trying to be all things to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. As you know, I do conference headshots. So companies come here for their annual conference or their leadership retreats, and they got everybody together. So we need our leadership team. We need new headshots. So they get hold of me. What's really interesting, on a number of occasions, they said, "Well, we Googled you, and we Googled headshot photographers Jacksonville, and we had a baby photographer, a wedding photographer." And you were like fifth down, Chris, and you're the only one that says you just do headshots and corporate headshots. So we went with you. So that's going to transition me into more recently. We've had people say they did an AI search. So they went on, who's the best headshot photographer in Jacksonville? Luckily, we're on the page.
They chat GPT'd it.
Yeah,
I wonder what happens if I chat GPT you right now.
people are doing that, and the reason is they're cutting through all that stuff they don't want in Google.
Yeah.
They want,
That's who uses Google anymore.
it's Barry and I have had lots of conversations about that. So, but it's the way of the world. AI searches will dominate, I think, in the next few years. So Google is not going to be the primary way people search for things. It will be AI searches. And in those cases, everything that you put on your website better be right on the money, because AI will sift through it really quickly.
Yeah. That's funny. I actually just searched it up and you are number one. Top pick, Chris Cottrell, based right in Ponte Vedra Beach. That's amazing. If you've got ChatGPT putting you up there, you're doing something right.
Yeah, well, I think they had a number of clients book me, and they say, yeah, well, I went on to Perplexity and said, who's the best headshot photographer in Jacksonville? And Chris Cottrell
Yeah.
Photographers. And the amazing thing is, it reads it back to them. So it's
Yeah.
reading it back to them. Would you like to go to their website? Connect me to their website. It's our world is changing rapidly, and I think that we all need to either embrace it, or much like going from film to digital to now mirrorless cameras, you can stay in the dark ages. But I think the consequences of that are pretty dire.
Yeah. You might as well just move to a cabin by a lake at that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound bad, but you gotta get to the point that you can do that,
Yeah. All right. So let's think here. Let's just talk about when two last things. The first one is, so you when we decided on the day that we're going to photograph the team, I made the studio available to Umbrella IT Solutions. and then you sent the link out, the booking link out to the team. And then how was that efficient? Did that work well for them?
Yeah, that actually was one of the big pain points we had with the idea of scheduling these is because our days are pretty booked, right? People have, project management shifts, they have engineer shifts where they're on help desk. We can't really take a day off during the week, right? Like we're managing client environments. We have SLAs where we have to reply within a certain amount of time. Customers are expecting that we're going to be there to help them. So to get everybody together for the headshot during a normal business day is a big challenge. So the way that you had it where it was staggered, we had, an hour and a half, hour and a half, hour and a half, or whatever, and maybe it only took 30 minutes. But to be able to have that time for us to drive out, get back to where we were, right? And we also chose that day we'd meet back at the office and have fun at the office because we're all, driving towards that way anyway. But absolutely having that ability to break it up made it a lot more practical, made it a lot easier for us to actually make it a objective, or else we would have had to do it on a weekend, or we would have had to shut down the help desk for a couple of hours and rushed everybody over, and we would have all been sitting on top of each other, standing on each other's toes, trying to figure out how to get our shot in and get back to work. So it was great. I think it's the right way to do it. And I think for small businesses that's invaluable to have that flexibility.
Yeah, it's much like when I go out to companies and I still schedule the staff headshots. So I'm there, for the day, say, and they've got say 25, 30 employees, and I'm just they're scheduled in. So
Yeah.
it keeps it very efficient. That way, with companies big and small, that the team members can schedule around what they've got going on. So if they've got meetings and client things going on, they can pick out that 10 or 15 minutes and not interrupt their day. So we keep
Yeah.
everything moving. So I think that's really important. So let's talk about the headshots. So you had these great headshots, and then how have you used them?
The main areas we have them are on website and on our email signatures. We also have them on business cards. And what we did in our site is we created custom business cards that are accessible through our website. And so what they are is essentially their staff bio pages, and you can't see them on the main website. There's no way to actually, just type in a URL. We use what's called a unique slug, and we direct people to these pages via QR codes. So each of
Okay.
us has, we have multiple things we have these QR codes on. We have a leather keyring pad that has a QR code on it, and somebody scans that with their phone. It takes it straight to this embedded bio page where it has the headshot. It then has, a click add to contacts button, so they can click add to contacts. And we have those same QR codes on our business cards so that we don't have to give them out to everybody. Some people like having that card. We see that a lot with the older generation, which are still, very much involved in business leadership. They want that physical card. But a lot of the younger crowd, they just don't want cards. They don't, they might not even have a wallet and so they just want to hit that QR code, add to contacts. It adds all our information. But that page immediately, it has, the face that comes up. It has the, the QR information. So, those business cards on the website, maybe on some branding materials, some landing pages, and then our email signatures so that we're, getting that back and forth. We have it on our Microsoft profile. So our Microsoft profile picture shows, if we're in Teams or whatever, people are seeing who we are. And in Outlook as well, like just on the Microsoft icons, it shows up as well. We have it on our voice over IP system because people in the same VoIP system as us can see icons or avatars as well, so they see who we are. So, I think it becomes a part of your brand kit in many ways. You add it wherever you can, wherever you have a unique user associated with a brand. But those are the ways I can think of right now that we use it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're using the headshots outside of some like conventional thinking. So that's really good. That reminds me, last year my wife got me one of those dot cards.
Yeah, that's very much. So that was kind of where we got the idea. We started seeing people using Dot and these other services. And the issue is if we were a lot bigger and we had a lot more turnover with staff, it would make sense for us to use one of those. But we don't need to make changes on the back end to people's roles or positions very much, right? Maybe once every year or every 2 years. So it's just easier. And we have a guy who's a good developer in house, so he can just go in and quickly make the change if we need to So we essentially do the same thing, just using our website and some tricky coding to obfuscate the pages so that people's personal contact information doesn't end up on a Google search engine or something like that. But so it's the same concept with the QR code. We have the ability to do NFC as well, just like the Dot. So same exact concept.
Yeah, I find it really handy when I'm shooting groups. So I've got 120 people coming through and probably every third person will say, "Do you have a card?" And
Yeah.
my assistant will say, "We do, but we also have a dot," and she just puts it near their phone and it's done. I mean,
Yep.
it's incredible.
One of the biggest things I wanted the QR code capability, not just the NFC touch, is because you can put it on branding, right? So if we
Yeah,
do like a stand at an event, if we go to some sort of a vendor meet and greet or anything like that, I can put it on a t-shirt. I can put it on a temporary henna tattoo. I can put it on, a thumb pad or something that we can have hanging off of our table. So that NFC is super valuable for me because it creates an easy way for people to ingest all your contact information. And then, or sorry, not the NFC, but the QR code. But then the NFC is the most convenient in just being able to touch it to people's phones, and you don't have to pull up their camera to do the QR code.
yeah, so pretty amazing.
Yep.
Pretty amazing technology. Well, Ray, you've been a great guest and shared a lot of information. And I'm sure there are a lot of small businesses out there and big ones that could probably take some of the advice that you've shared with us today and implement that. So it's been great. It's been a pleasure talking with you today, and look forward to us meeting again soon in person and our next collaboration.
We'll be in touch.
All right,
Thanks
will you
for
say
having
hi
me on.
to Angela and the guys for me? Because one of the best photo shoot days I've had in a long time was Umbrella IT.
That's awesome to hear, and I certainly will.
Good fun.
Thanks, Chris. Have a
All
good
right,
day.
thanks so much, Ray.
Okay, that looks great.